In a shocking turn of events, Canada has just pulled the plug on a critical energy supply to the U.S., leaving Washington scrambling for answers. With tensions rising and the stakes higher than ever, this bold move could reshape the economic and political landscape between the two nations. How will the U.S. respond? And why has Donald Trump, known for his fiery reactions, been eerily silent? Stay tuned as we break down the details of this unprecedented decision and what it means for the future of North American energy. The shockwave, Canada's bold electricity cut threat. In a shocking turn of events, Canada has warned it may slash or even suspend electricity exports to critical U.S. states, a move that could send energy markets into chaos. States like New York, Michigan, and Minnesota rely on Ontario for nearly 95% of their imported power. If Canada follows through, the consequences could be severe. Soaring electricity bills, grid instability, and even blackouts during peak demand. But this isn't just a bluff. Experts say this is a calculated counterstrike against U.S. tariffs, an aggressive power play where energy itself becomes a bargaining chip. The move exposes deep vulnerabilities in the interconnected North American grid, with ripple effects reaching far beyond electricity. Manufacturing, tech industries, and supply chains could all feel the squeeze. As U.S. leaders scramble to find alternatives, this high-stakes gamble could force a radical shift in energy policies and trade negotiations. Could this be the moment that reshapes North America's energy future? Crude control, oil as a political lever. While electricity grabs the headlines, another energy battle is brewing, this time over oil. Canada is the largest supplier of crude to the U.S., delivering a staggering 6.1 million barrels per day. Pipelines like Keystone XL and Enbridge form the backbone of America's fuel supply, with roughly 67% of U.S. oil imports coming from Canada. Now, Canadian leaders are floating an even more disruptive countermeasure: cutting oil exports. Even a temporary reduction could send oil prices soaring, forcing industries to scramble for expensive alternatives. From the price of gas at the pump to the costs of industrial production, the impact would be felt everywhere. This isn't just about economics. It's a geopolitical chess match. A single disruption could send shockwaves through global markets and force long-term shifts in energy policy. The question is, will the U.S. bend under pressure, or will this showdown redefine the balance of power in North American energy? Tariff turbulence, North American trade clashes. The U.S.-Canada trade war has escalated into a high-stakes economic standoff, driven by America First policies that prioritize domestic production. Sweeping U.S. tariffs on steel, aluminum, and consumer goods have triggered sharp retaliation from Canada, one of America's most critical suppliers of energy, raw materials, and technology. In response, Canada is weighing countermeasures that could include restrictions on oil, electricity, and rare earth metals, potentially reshaping North America's economic landscape. The fallout is already being felt across industries. Prices are rising, supply chains are in flux, and key sectors like energy and automotive manufacturing face mounting uncertainty. With market volatility surging and debates over economic sovereignty intensifying, the stakes have never been higher. The question remains, can North America strike a balance between economic protectionism and global interdependence to maintain a sustainable trade equilibrium? Interwoven economies, the cross-border energy and material dance. Beyond the headlines of trade disputes and political maneuvering lies a deeply interwoven economic relationship between the U.S. and Canada. American industries depend on a steady flow of Canadian resources, crude oil, natural gas, and critical minerals like cobalt, nickel, and lithium, to keep factories running and sustain key sectors like automotive and aerospace. In 2024 alone, U.S. imports of Canadian energy products reached billions of dollars, proving that even an economic powerhouse like the U.S. can't operate in isolation. But this interdependence is a double-edged sword. While it fuels production and innovation, it also creates vulnerabilities when political tensions flare. Disruptions could send production costs soaring, drive up consumer prices, and weaken North America's global competitiveness. The bottom line? A stable, open trade relationship isn't just beneficial. It's essential for sustaining industry growth, economic stability, and technological progress in an increasingly interconnected world. Open trade fuels progress. Economic dominoes. How trade disruptions impact industries and consumers. Trade disputes don't just play out in boardrooms, they hit industries and everyday consumers where it hurts. When tariffs and trade skirmishes escalate, the shockwaves ripple through every sector of the economy. The U.S. depends heavily on Canadian energy exports, from crude oil and natural gas to electricity. Any disruption forces industries to scramble for costlier alternatives, driving up production expenses. Even a minor supply chain hiccup can snowball into production delays, soaring operating costs, and rising consumer prices. This domino effect is felt everywhere, from auto manufacturing to essential services. When a single component is delayed or becomes more expensive, fuel costs climb, product prices inflate, and the financial burden lands on everyday consumers. In essence, every tariff imposed risks throwing a wrench into the economic engine, pushing the economy closer to inflation and a broader slowdown. Diplomatic drifts. The strategic game of trade, international trade, is a high-stakes chess match, and right now, the U.S. and Canada are making bold moves to protect their national interests. As the U.S. pushes policies to boost domestic production, Canada is countering by leveraging its role as a key supplier of energy and raw materials. With potential electricity export cuts and discussions of oil restrictions, Canadian leaders are sending a clear message. Energy is a powerful bargaining chip. These countermeasures aren't just about economics. They challenge the stability of the U.S. energy grid and force American policymakers to rethink their protectionist stance. But the stakes go even higher. These trade tensions spill over into border security, technology investments, and government contracts, with third-party nations like Mexico watching closely. Every diplomatic maneuver carries both risks and rewards, shaping the future of international trade and security. In today's interconnected world, this economic rivalry isn't just about trade, it's a battle that's reshaping global power dynamics. Pricing and policy, impacting your wallet and the future. After breaking down energy exports, tariffs, and political strategies, it's time to focus on what really matters: how these shifts affect your wallet. Disruptions in trade don't just create headlines, they create price swings that hit households and businesses hard. If Canada restricts electricity exports, U.S. consumers could see steep spikes in energy bills, especially during peak demand. Similarly, cutting back on Canadian crude, essential to U.S. fuel imports, could send gas prices soaring, impacting freight costs, manufacturing, and everyday goods. On top of that, tariffs on raw materials and consumer products add another layer of cost pressure, potentially driving up vehicle prices and the overall cost of living. Now, policymakers face a tough balancing act, protecting domestic jobs while navigating the complex realities of a globally connected economy. In the end, these pricing and policy shifts don't just influence today's expenses. They shape long-term economic stability and future growth. Beyond energy, the wider impact of trade disruptions. While energy exports dominate the headlines, the effects of this trade battle stretch far beyond electricity and oil. Every sector tied to North American supply chains, from manufacturing and technology to food production, stands at risk. Automotive industry. Rising energy costs mean higher production expenses, potentially increasing vehicle prices and threatening jobs in U.S. factories. Automakers relying on Canadian aluminum and raw materials could face further supply chain bottlenecks. Technology and critical minerals. Canada is a key supplier of lithium, cobalt, and nickel, essential for EV batteries, semiconductors, and renewable energy tech. Tariffs or restrictions on these materials could disrupt the EV and tech industries, driving up costs and slowing innovation. Food and agriculture. Higher fuel prices impact transportation and refrigeration, making everything from groceries to restaurant supplies more expensive. Farmers relying on fertilizers or equipment with imported components could also face cost hikes. The longer these trade disputes persist, the more these disruptions will trickle down to everyday consumers. If Canada cuts energy exports, how does the U.S. respond? While short-term shocks are unavoidable, policymakers may explore alternative solutions. Investing in renewable energy could reduce reliance on foreign energy sources, though such transitions take time. This energy and trade battle between Canada and the U.S. isn't just policy. It's a transformative shift in global dynamics. What do you think? How will these trade moves impact the world and your daily expenses? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe for more updates and insights.